There is a list of certain individuals, EndSARS protesters, who are allegedly still being held by security forces. Also, human rights activist Juwon Sanyaolu reportedly recently gained his freedom from police custody just days after his whereabouts became unknown. Recall that former Senator Shehu Sani, during the 2024 Democracy Day dinner in Abuja, said that some EndSARS protesters are still being detained. Meanwhile, in a statement by the police spokesperson Olumiyiwa Adejobi, he said that the former senator's claims were misleading and should be disregarded. So today we are engaging in the discussion, circulating list about the EndSARS protesters in prison and the release of Juwon Sanyaolu and what this means to the integrity of the DSS, the Nigerian Police Force and the Nigerian judiciary at large. We are joined by human rights activist and former presidential candidate Omoyele Sowore, who will be engaging in the discussion of all this. Thank you for joining us today. So could you give us an overview of the situation surrounding this detainment, particularly of Juwon Sanyaolu?
It is very wrong to claim that Juwon was arrested. He was kidnapped around the ShopRite area of Lagos and taken into custody in Communicado. It is believed that the federal government sent a team from Abuja comprising of DSS and police to ensure that he was kidnapped before the day of the protest, June 12 protest. So for 3 days, we didn't know his whereabouts. And the police was the first to deny, and then the DSS later denied. But through our own intelligence networks, we found out that after he was kidnapped, they took him to the office of the police commissioner in Lagos, where he was first thoroughly beaten right inside the office of the commissioner of police, before he was then taken into detention for 3 days. And when we reached out to all the agencies, they all denied until our networks gave us the real situation of things, and we I personally called the commissioner of police in Lagos, who, when I first called him, feigned ignorance. He said, I don't know what happened, and let me check. And then when pressure came upon them, he then directed the person who they said we should bring to be his surety. They directed him to their chief intelligence officer, one ACP, at the headquarters in Ikeja. And that's how we got Juwon freed 3 days later.
How about the EndSARS protesters that are allegedly still being in custody too?
Well, this has been since 2020. They've kept those guys in custody. There's not only in Lagos, in Ibadan. We got a lot of them out of detention, but in Lagos, being the most notorious center of repression against the EndSARS peaceful protesters, where, as you are aware, a lot of deniers has happened and continues to happen. They still have these guys in detention. So it is recently that some more of them from Ikoyi prison sent out a distress notice that they are all EndSARS protesters who have been detained since 2020. We're talking about almost 4 years now of illegal detention. And I doubt that they even take them before any judge for trial. I doubt it. What should be clear to you as journalists that the Lagos axis of evil have always denied their involvement in the EndSARS crimes. They denied that they were not the ones who removed the camera, or that the camera was not removed on that day so as to avoid identifying the soldiers that came. They denied that they killed people at Lekki toll gates. They have denied every facet of the EndSARS massacre at Lekki toll gates. So why would you be surprised that they are denying that they have people in detention since 2020? This has been the method from the killings till now.
There's been a denial, but there is a list that points in the contrary. What does this say about their integrity? What does this say about the credibility of that Nigerian police force as a governmental institution?
The Nigerian police force has never had credibility, not in my lifetime. They've never been regarded as a government agency of dignity, credibility, or infallibility. They have always been dishonest. They have always been dishonest. The police has always been a dishonest government agency in Nigeria. I think it was in their DNA from the day they were set up. The more important issue is also that the judges, I'm talking about the judiciary now, have become also involved in these clear atrocities of sending people to prison for useless offenses. When I say useless offenses, you know what I'm not speaking in legal terms. I'm talking about offenses that do not require for anybody to be sent to prison. You know how now they are doing cybercrime offenses where even journalists are arrested and detained for days, if not weeks, and then they go and shop for judges. Typically, they get magistrate court judges or magistrates who, in the first place, don't have jurisdiction over the matter. But they will send you to prison and say, oh, why we send your file to the DPP or the Federal High Court? Stay in prison. This is how our prisons got congested. Judges must be told in clear terms by the administrators, the chief judges, the CJN, that you cannot send somebody to prison over a frivolous matter. Matters like wandering, you understand, which doesn't even exist, or politically motivated issues, like all this idea of arresting people for cybercrime. As long as you keep sending people to prison, or in some cases, police going to obtain detention warrants. How do you obtain detention warrants for 14 days? In a matter that, even sometimes when it is resolved, the person accused of the matter may not spend 14 days in jail. But you get the details. So what you find out that our police are doing in conjunction with the judiciary, the decadent members of the judiciary, is that they are trying to obtain punishment before trial.
Let's talk about what your movement, the Revolution Now movement, the Take It Back movement, what have you done as a body to see to the release of these EndSARS protesters that are still in detainment?
I led the delegation, I led the protest to the airport. We did graffiti at the airport at the National Assembly, and that also led to some arrests. It was after all that had happened that Take It Back movement started doing research to ensure that nobody was left behind. I found out that there were still a lot of people in EndSARS, and we started getting them bailed out. Up to last year, we bailed out a lot of them. But we weren't aware of this particular group until recently, and we have started again to campaign for their release. In fact, it was part of that led Shehu Sani to bring it to Tinubu's attention on June 11 at a dinner they said they had for former pro-democracy activists at the presidential villa. And then the next day, or 3 days later, the police denied it. But if you look at the internet, we have relisted, that is TIB now, and Revolution Now members have relisted the names and we started the campaign for their release.
You as an advocate, and you've been making certain moves towards the release of these protesters that are still being detained. What are some of the challenges you have faced? Could you run us through some of these challenges and what you intend to do about them?
The biggest of them is institutional dishonesty that we have discussed earlier. The fact that the police are denying that these individuals were arrested in 2020 for EndSARS offenses is the biggest challenge. The second challenge, which is not only a challenge, but a heartbreak, is all those EndSARS connoisseurs, as I like to call them, the big names that came around, the publicity, PR people, the stars who made huge amount of money who made huge amount of PR acreage, who got huge amount of public goodwill, followership in 2020, who have now gone silent over this matter, who no longer care about all these innocent persons who came out truthfully, genuinely, during EndSARS to fight, only to be abandoned by them.
This discussion would be complete if we do not talk about how the federal government should come in this. Yeah, the Nigerian Police Force has its own side of it. Your organization as an advocacy institution has its own side of it. Where do you want the federal government to come in this? Where do you want the administration of President Bola Tinubu to come in this discussion?
The sad part, which is important, is that it's EndSARS massacre or the atrocities committed by the police, the army against EndSARS has Bola Tinubu's footprints all over it, imprimatur.
How do you mean?
All over.
How do you mean?
Considering that he was alleged, well, not alleged at this point, known to have ties to the toll gate itself. In fact, his son Shehu is the person who handles all the contracts around the toll gates. All the contracts with regards to placing billboards and all that. And they were the ones who allegedly, when they removed the video evidence there. It is also their political party, the APC, that was in power at that time. So they carried out this atrocity as a political party. And you remember the attempt to deceive the public about EndSARS when, what is it called? The former governor of Lagos State went there, Fashola, and pretended that he found a video recorder and asked somebody to take it. Have you asked yourself why we didn't get anything from that video recorder till today? So this tells you that they were all involved in carrying out the atrocities, in covering up the atrocities. So I do not expect the EndSARS victims to get justice under the Tinubu regime, because he was complicit himself in the EndSARS atrocities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sowore. I really appreciate how you've been able to do justice to all of my questions.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
And this is where we shall wrap up the discussion for today. For more updates, do visit our official website at guardian.ng or follow us on all our social media platforms at Guardian Nigeria. Khalid Bada is my name. Bye for now.